Pardon me while I have a strange interlude.
There is nothing else. Life is an obscure hobo bumming a ride on the omnibus of art.
Along the misty corridors of time, and in those corridors I see figures, strange figures.
Welcome back, my friends, to the AP Strange Show. The show today is brought to you by the dark, shadowy entity who is currently lurking behind your left shoulder. Don't turn to look at the shadowy entity lurking behind your left shoulder, because it will just disappear into the shadows and vaporize into the walls. Just know that the dark, shadowy entity lurking behind your left shoulder right now is partly responsible for your enjoyment of this show. So, moving forward, on today's show, we have a fun guest. I have become acquainted with her through Discords and stuff like that. We've crossed paths on the ethereal interwebs, and she's a very interesting person, has some great stories, and she is a magic practitioner, a sometimes actress, and a small business owner. And as I already alluded to, kind of an experiencer of weird phenomena. And I am happy to have her on the show. And her name is Lindsey Sokol. Welcome to the show, Lindsey.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. It's an honor, AP.
Well, I'm happy to have you. We were talking privately, and you had said that you could terrorize my listeners with some of your stories. But as I understand it, we've got some fun stories from you today.
I am going
Or
to
at
try
least
to be
more
a little
lighthearted.
Yeah, it's the holidays, right? Keep things a little kinder and gentler.
Yeah. But before we get to those, I had said sometimes actress. Do you act much, or is this just kind of a? I know you've been in a couple different projects for acting.
Yeah. So honestly, I really don't act much. It's just sort of a random thing when something falls in my lap, for a friend or I used to do all the school plays though, of course. So there's my background.
Yeah.
But I've been in, I think this is probably, I think, my fourth movie I've had a part in. So
Okay.
generally, it's the horror genre, horror or sci-fi. We have a really nice local scene where I live. We have several people that have made all kinds of movies, from weird shadow creatures to zombies, to everything. But this latest one was actually a friend of mine from Ireland who asked me to do a remote video to place into his movie.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty wild. I was curious about the logistics of that, because this is a short film called The Monochrome Menace, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, and you have a role in it. So you recorded that yourself, and it was kind of edited in and everything with the film.
Yeah, so what was neat about this movie is that because so first of all, it's an homage to old B movies, old sci-fi B movies. And because most of it takes place on the TV screen of the characters, because they're watching a movie in this movie, we were able to get away with having people film their own parts on location because it's going through like the filter of the TV screen. So we could have a reason for why things look different.
Right.
So that's how we were able to do this because all the parts in the one section where people are showing their reactions from around the world, everyone except for the Spanish woman was filmed on location in that country.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So for mine, my husband took the kid out for one day. I had one day I could get away with doing this because my schedule is crazy. So I had to construct the entire set, get my costume, my makeup, do all the stuff myself, get my camera set up, get the lights set up. I had to buy some like lights, like for film and stuff. And I memorized everything that day, did a bunch of takes and sent it over to Emmett. And honestly, one of the things that Emmett keeps wanting me to tell people is like, we had so much footage we couldn't use because of the time constraints, so it can qualify for these film festivals. And he's hoping to actually do something in the future with my character. So
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, we're hoping to do something either like kind of like use her as a host for a film festival, or even like truly do like the horror movie hostess thing and use her to actually host movies online or something. We've been kind of
Oh,
throwing
right.
ideas back and forth. Yeah.
Yeah, because that is your character is kind of the Elvira-ish, like,
Yeah.
horror movie hostess.
Yeah, exactly. But I took a lot of inspiration from Cassandra Peterson, so yeah, for sure.
Well,
She's an
she's
idol of
awesome.
mine. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, she is awesome, so that's what are you gonna do?
Exactly.
Yeah, so, and this movie is it's in some Irish film festivals now?
It is. So I think I wrote down a few things that it's in. Currently, it's a finalist in the Waterford International Film Festival for Best Film. And if you go to Waterford Waterford International Film Festival's website, you can purchase a ticket to view this movie and the rest of the movies in its grouping for $8. So this is your chance to see a bunch of really great movies.
Yeah?
It's also been nominated for Best Irish Short Film at the May the 4th Sci-Fi Film Festival. It won Best Horror Comedy at the Dreamers Festival in LA, and Best Indie Horror Short Film and Best Sci-Fi Short Film at the Dublin Indie Screen Festival as well. So it's been doing pretty well for when he's been able to submit it.
Oh, that's excellent, and that is good news that people are able to actually view it. Because a lot of times when things are on the festival circuit, it's like, you'll hear things, but you're not able to actually watch it, you have to wait, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And it's been so hard because I want to show it to everyone. And up until now I haven't been able to. And I'm like, guys, you can see it now. Like, go check it out. It's awesome.
Right, right, yeah. Well, not to brag or anything, but I got a sneak peek at it, and I thought it was pretty funny. It's really good, and I love B movies, especially 1950s B movies. So it was speaking my language. That film was.
I had a feeling it would. I had a feeling, and I love that he did actual like tiny like reconstructions of the city and like little model like spaceships. I think that just made it so much better than doing like CGI or something.
Right, right. Parts of it reminded me of. Did you ever see The Lost Skeleton of Cadavra?
No, no, I'm
Oh, you
sorry.
have to see that movie. Yeah, it's like a
Never
feature
even heard of
length
it.
goofy B movie, homage in kind of the similar style where it's intentionally bad and they
Yeah.
have all these little jokes and stuff. But
Oh
yeah,
my gosh.
it's great. There's parts of it that'll just like have you on the floor laughing. So that's kind of what it reminded me of.
It-
Um,
oh my gosh. Yeah, you have to link me that later. Remind me.
yeah, it's a favorite of mine. I might have to revisit it soon because my family and I just love it. We'll reference parts of it to each other, just little lines from it here and there all the time. So
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
if you like mystery science theater and that kind of thing,
Yeah.
it's kind of on that same level of comedy. So
Oh,
yeah,
fair, fair. I'm sure I will probably enjoy it then. I mean, my cousins and I used to like watch The Room on purpose, so.
yeah, okay, yeah,
Yeah. Oh, and another thing too, I wanted to mention about the cast, because I mean, he was able to pull people from like all over the world for this project, and he even got Lisa Foyles to play Veronica Summers, and she was on all that on Nickelodeon, and she played Mallory on Malcolm in the Middle too. So we have some people
Oh,
with real acting chops.
yeah. Oh, that's good.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Like, I remember liking Malcolm in the Middle a lot. There was one
Yeah.
time where I revisited it after not watching it for years, and I'm like, "This is probably fine." And then was laughing a lot. I'm like, "This is actually a pretty funny show." So
Was like, I remember I didn't always catch it because back then, like, there wasn't streaming, but the episodes I did see like were really good, like they had that. I don't know, that was a really good style of comedy, and like you can still like find memes like online that like work to this day.
yeah, yeah, and they had some pretty classic actors that sometimes
Yeah.
would be in it, like from Mel Brooks movies. Like there was a whole season that had Kenneth Mars in it, more
Oh.
than a season maybe. That and he was like the kooky Nazi playwright from The Producers. That
Oh,
like
okay.
Inspector Klumt and Young Frankenstein, the guy with like one eye and the fake wooden arm and everything.
Oh my God. I haven't watched that movie in like decades.
Yeah. Well, I'm a Mel Brooks nut, so I've seen every movie too many times. But
I, I watched them a lot when I was like a kid at my grandma's house. So yeah.
yeah, yeah. I think Cloris Leachman was on the show often too, and she was in a lot of the old Mel Brooks movies. So it
Mm,
had a pedigree with classic comedy.
definitely. Oh
Um,
my goodness.
all right, so yeah, I'll definitely include that link to the Waterford Film Festival because $8 is. I'll include it in the show notes because $8 is a hell of a deal to watch all those films, and
Oh yeah.
you get to like be a play judge in your own living room and pick your favorite.
Yeah.
But
Hopefully our movie, but
yeah, Monochrome Menace. Yeah, it gets the AP Strange stamp of approval. So for the listeners out there,
thank you so much.
you can treat yourself if you have days off for the holidays and whatnot. And you can just watch a whole film festival in your own house. So yeah,
Yeah, oh yeah. Good with the weather getting colder because I don't want to leave the house right now.
yeah. I mean, I guess it depends on where you live. What part of the world are you in for the listeners?
Oh,
Uh,
Ohio. So
Ohio.
it's already started snowing for the year. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that. I mean, we're recording before Thanksgiving. Today's recording date is I record way ahead of time, so but for the listeners, it's the end of November right now, and we in Massachusetts have still yet to get any snow, but I think it's coming, so that'll be
Okay.
good because we haven't had any really in recent years. So
Really?
yeah,
Oh,
it's been miserable.
sorry.
Not even because I love the snow. I do like snow, but it's just it's unnerving because you know that normal
Yes.
means snow, and then when there isn't any, you're like, this isn't normal. Like 3 years in a row with hardly any snow, that's crazy. You know?
That terrifies me because that's,
Yeah,
that's a sign of climate changing, and it's just like, no, no, why are the patterns switching up on you like that? It's not good.
don't like it. Yeah,
No.
so I'm gonna have to do some serious weather magic this year to see see if I can rectify that.
No, I do have a funny story about weather magic.
Oh, I love weather magic. All right. I'd love to hear that because you have had plenty of experiences and your own magical practices. So that's a good segue.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
t- Tell me the weather magic story.
Okay, so I was in junior high. So this is gonna be great already. But we had I want to say something like 5 snow days. It was something crazy. We had been home from school and I was on the phone with my friend John, and me and him were just talking. I think I was like binging green tea for some reason, because I drank so much green tea back then. And we're just on the phone and I'm like, I do not want to go to school tomorrow. I just want one more day, like, because then I don't know if maybe it was at the end of the week or something, where it's like, oh, if we could just get one more day, I'd be happy.
Right.
And we looked at the weather forecast, and everything said it was clear skies. It was warm up just a little, like there'd be no snow at all, like we're going back to school tomorrow without fail. I told John, I was like, dude, let's do a spell. So So I get my phone, he's on his phone, like, I can't remember if it was the house phone or if I had like my little baby cell phone yet, because like, oh, I had this god awful analog cell phone that played the Snake game. And this is before Nokia's too. This is how old this thing was. It was like a brick. But we're on the phone, and like he was my friend that got me into like more of like the kind of pagan style of magic. Because before that it was more like tarot astrology and all that jazz.
Okay.
So so yeah, just to clarify, so we're both on the phone. I'm like, look, here's the spell we're gonna do. Like we kind of wrote it out together, and I'm like, what we'll do is we'll set our phones down at the same time so that we're synchronized. You know, cast our circles, do the spell, pick up the phone as soon as you're done saying everything. Okay, so that's what we did. Set the phones down, did our circles, did the spell, pick them back up, and we're like, okay, you done? Yeah, you done? All right. It's like, all right, let's see what happens tomorrow. And you know what happened? We got our snow day.
Oh yeah. Yep. I mean, that's the thing is, I don't know if people realize outside of magic, but like weather magic and weather spells are kind of universal. I feel like in every form of magic, weather is part of it, and being able to
Yeah.
control the weather on some level. And yeah, so and I mean, I think everybody that practices has had some proximity to it or seen it work before, even if they haven't done it themselves. So yeah, it's amazing, right? Like that's an
Yeah.
amazing feeling.
Anytime you have a successful spell, it's an amazing feeling for sure. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But
But
like
with
with
the
weather,
weather just seems like something that's so powerful that you like couldn't. So
yeah. It's something where in one hand it's something where it's like this is so big, it's bigger than us, how am I possibly tapping into it? But on the other hand it's like it's almost natural to tap into something that like primal and elemental, and like you just kind of feel it in your veins,
yeah.
and I think it's hard to explain, but it's like when you feel really connected to the earth when you're grounding. It's like you're truly connected with it in a way that's different than when you're doing magic that's meant to manipulate probability and chances. Like it's a whole different feeling, and there's something I think almost comforting about it.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, especially I don't know, I think you can feel the difference too when it's going to work and when it's not gonna. And it's
Hmm.
a delicate thing. It's really delicate. Like you don't want to look at it directly and say this is all right. I'm going to put money on this.
No,
Um,
then
but
it'll
when
definitely not
you
work.
then it won't. Yeah. So yeah, when when
Yeah.
you've done something and you kind of feel it. And if I've done weather magic, I try not
Mhm.
to do it too much. But if I've done it, I will mention what what the outcome is going to be briefly, and I won't press it.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna like um, linger on it too much. I'm not gonna worry about it.
Mhm.
And then usually it comes to pass if that's what I do. But usually it's something like keeping the rain away long enough for us to do something outside, and
Yeah.
like just barely long enough. So
It's like something was listening to you and was like, all right, we'll let this guy have his nice day. Okay.
yeah, I mean, and it can be uncanny. Like there was a town-wide yard sale, and my wife and mother-in-law really wanted to go, and it was supposed to rain, and everybody said it was going to rain. And on the weather map, you could see like clouds all around the
Yeah.
town that we were heading for. And I said I did my thing, and I'm like, we're good until 2 p.m. You know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we finished up what we were doing. We went and got lunch, and we're leaving the restaurant, and I see that it's like 1:45. I'm like, whoop, it's almost time for the rain. And we're driving away, and here comes like little raindrops and spitting and stuff. It was just kind of like uncanny, like how on point that was. It didn't start up again until right at 2. So
Oh, no, the fact that you had it like timed to perfection like that, that's fantastic. I love it.
I worry sometimes about talking too much about
Oh,
um, being accurate, because then I'm like, oh no, what if that makes it so I'm not next time, you know?
Yes. Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, there's this fear that, and I've had this since I was, younger too. It's this fear that the more you talk about it, like the less it'll work.
Hmm.
And I don't know where that comes from, but I feel like it gets ingrained in us either from other practitioners or from maybe like some of those older 90s level era books, you know what I mean? Like, which didn't always have the best information in them because they just got printed. Like, they're just going out there without any fact checking or anything. And it's
Right.
just like a bunch of people's like BS opinions half the time. But yeah, and there's also like the whole thing about like with magicians, like you're supposed to be secret, it's occult knowledge, you're not supposed to be out in the open with it. But at the same time, it's like part of me is like, wait a minute, I've been doing this for how many years? I've talked about lot of these things, and I'm still having successful spells. So while I do believe in maybe a little bit of caution with who you're talking to, just because, there's no sense in talking to someone that's just gonna rain on your parade the whole time and be like the kind of the not cool kind of skeptic. It's like, I think you'll be okay. Like, I think your
Right.
magic's still gonna work. You can talk about it. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's like, be
Well, I'm
brave.
always, I think for me, it just comes from personal experience where, like, if I try to do anything performatively, it's gonna fail, you know, like,
Well, yeah, because you're not being sincere, you
right.
know?
Yeah. And I think that's a big part of it that I've had to learn through trial and error over the years. I believe you're right about that.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, like, well, you have to get into first of all, like, what are the mechanisms behind why a spell's working? And people from different paths have different ideas. Like, some people think it's all based on your own, like, psychic and magical abilities. Some people, it's all about the spirits that you're asking and connecting to. I have more of a hybrid approach to, like, what's going on depending on the situation. But I think that particularly when you're working with spirits, we'll say, um you do need that kind of sincerity, but also like when you're putting on a performance, you are not getting your mind, you're not getting into the right headspace that's actually going to connect with these entities. And so if there's no connection, they're not hearing you, so nothing's going to happen you know
right.
and it's kind of almost a similar thing when it comes to stuff that's coming from your own abilities. Like, um sure, you want all this to happen, but if you can't, let yourself get into that headspace, that brainwave, whatever it is, um, you're not going to actually be affecting reality. You're just going to be chanting some words and performing. And,
Hmm.
so,
Yeah, you have to be present for it, and it
yeah,
has to be genuine. I think is kind of what you're getting at too, right?
that's a fair summary. I think there's a little more nuance to it, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's an easy way of summarizing it for people.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, well, I just mean because there is a performance aspect, you know, like there is kind of a bit of theater to it, and
Yeah.
that plays into it. I don't know. I guess you're right. There are a lot of divergent opinions too.
Mhm.
I think I know the kinds of books you were talking about as well. With like I was dabbling in Wicca and various
Okay.
forms of paganism in the '90s, and I remember all those books and the New Age stores and stuff.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's stuff that like straight up has incorrect stuff about various like deities or myths, like stuff that you could go on Wikipedia now and like find better information. So
Yeah, but you couldn't back then, so it
no,
was
you couldn't. So you couldn't fact check. You just believed everything and were like, sure, sure, that's true. Unless, of course, you're some nerd that had like a bunch of mythology books from like something.
yeah. I mean, I kind of was that nerd. Like I read Bullfinch's mythology for fun in high school and stuff like that. So,
Fantastic. I'm sure you and my husband would get along very well.
oh yeah, I was also reading like epic poetry. I loved that, like the Iliad and and Dante's Inferno, and that was kind of like
Yeah.
the books I was looking for as a teenager. So
I have the Dante's Inferno version where it's like Italian and English. So you see that it on, one on one page, one on the other, and like I was challenging myself to read in the Italian because I was in Italian class at the time.
oh yeah, I mean that's not a bad way to learn a language. Like I found that, and I'm sure you've noticed this as well. A lot of
Mhm.
the best magic texts are in French, and not all of them
Mm.
are translated. So like sometimes I've kind of tried to teach myself French by reading old French grimoires and stuff.
Oh my gosh. Well, you know what? That'll definitely teach you because if you get it wrong, it could be very interesting.
Well, I'm not reading them out loud, so
Okay. Okay. Well, that's a little safer then, I guess.
yeah. And I mean, I don't think I could handle French pronunciation anyway. Like a little bit here and there, maybe, but it would take a lot of practice for me to get that right.
Yeah, French was not one of my stronger languages. I think I might be able to like say like un deux trois and I'm good. There we go.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Um, but yeah. Um,
But yeah.
so as far as the magic stuff goes, did you
Yeah.
start with astrology? Was that the like kind of your entree to the magical occult world, or was it something else?
So even though this isn't technically magic, I think I have to at least mention my first ever like paranormal encounter because I think that's really what pushed me to be open to magic and everything in this world. And that was, I'll be really brief, but when I was, it had to have been between 1 and 2, old enough to stand, but couldn't really verbalize more than like mom, or mama. But I had a shadow person encounter, and don't get me wrong, like, I know people be like, "What, you remember that?" I'm like, I have very mundane memories from that age as well. That I can tell you about. I can tell you about my mom doing laundry. So it's not weird for me to have memories that young. But I saw a shadow person in my bedroom and that night, and I remember, the door was cracked open, so the light from the hallway was cutting across the room to the other side, and that separated me from the shadow person. And like, I feel like that is the only reason why this thing couldn't come closer. Like, it was stopped, like it was reaching towards me, and it was stopped by where that light was.
Hmm.
And that kind of set the tone for the rest of my life. So it got me interested, in this sort of thing because, I'd had other things too, like weird dreams and stuff, as I was growing up. And then my aunt, who is a retired yoga teacher, she's the one that got me into the astrology stuff. Because she was also a Buddhist at the time as well, and so she was very into astrology and how it, played into that. And so I would get like these little cute astrology books on Libras from her, and things like that. And she would teach me, concepts like meditation, and like I remember uh, I sat there, this one day, like had a sore throat, and I just remember, after talking with my aunt, I was like, I'm gonna try and meditate this sore throat away. And I'm just sitting there in my grandma's kitchen and thinking about it, and it's just like 5, 10 minutes later, like my sore throat's totally gone, and just like weird little
Yeah.
stuff like that. Then around middle school, that's when I got my first tarot deck. Already had the Ouija board before that, so your typical kind of stuff. And then 7th grade, that's when I met John. And then John was super into like neo-paganism. So he's the one that got me into like more of that. I don't cringe at me here, but like, like Celtic magic. So which and Celtic magic is just like a horrible term because there's no Celtic pantheon. It's actually like a bunch of different groups of deities depending on the region and the country. But it was the 90s, so they're like Celtic magic, and they
Yeah.
squash these deities together that don't belong. And and that's just the general like neo-pagan, eclectic Wicca kind of crap. And and
Right.
yeah, and went on from there.
Did you have that book of like the lessons of Merlin or something like that?
Oh gosh, no.
Yeah,
That
there was
sounds
one
fun
from
though.
Llewellyn. The one from Llewellyn that came out in the early '90s that was like Merlin magic, you know. It was all
Yeah.
supposed to be Celtic stuff, and yeah,
Oh,
um,
there was always like Arthurian magic. There was always those books on that coming out too. I remember. Yeah.
right, the Arthurian tarot. I've seen
Yeah.
that before. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. No, and
yeah.
I had
Well,
the classic Celtic Magic by DJ Conway, so it was that one.
oh yeah, yeah. I remember seeing that. I don't think I ever had that one. For me, it
Okay.
was like the Solitary Practitioner book by Scott Cunningham. I had
Oh,
that.
well, see, at least you got like a more decent start, you know.
Yeah, I had the Buckland book,
Yeah. I had
and
the Big Blue
the
Bible. Yeah.
yep, and I had I had some Starhawk.
Mhm.
Yeah, the ones I picked generally were okay.
Yeah, I mean, I still use Cunningham's Encyclopedia of Herbs and his one on rocks, gemstones, and minerals too. Like those, I think are really solid books.
Yeah, he was good, and he was open to a lot of different things. I
Yeah.
don't think he's still with us. Didn't he pass away? Or
I I would say he must have. I'm pretty
right?
like, I'm so sorry if you're still alive, but like at this point, I just assume most of them have passed away. Like I think like one of the is Oberon Zell still alive?
I actually don't know. Yeah, that's the thing because you don't really keep up with the people really. They just had the landmark book, and they may have continued writing afterward, but
Yeah.
you don't know about it. So I just
Yeah.
feel like I saw an obituary for Cunningham at some point, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, like one of the few people, and this was a little bit later that, but of course he's younger too. Jason Miller, I got his books pretty early on, and of course he's Gen X, so
Right,
he's not that old, but yeah, most of them were at least boomer or older. So like,
right, yeah, yeah, yeah. But the other comment I was going to make is I feel a little bad about today's sponsor now that I've heard your kind of origin story.
oh, well, as I tell my kid, shadow people are stranger danger. So if they ask you to go somewhere, you don't follow them.
Okay, so was this a I mean, it seems like kind of almost an initiatory event for you as a little tiny tyke. And I had something similar. It was the opposite of shadow people. It was kind of a pair of luminous balls at the end of my bed that were talking to me. And I was kind of around that same age.
Oh, really?
Um,
You
yeah.
tell.
Oh, I've told this story so many times. I mean, the basic in and out of it is that they just kind of wafted into the room. I was on a bunk bed,
Mhm.
top bunk. My brother was on the bottom bunk. It was always hard for me to figure out exactly how old I was because my brother's 2 years younger than me. So
Mhm.
if I had been three, he only would have been one. I would have thought that he would still be in a crib, but
Mhm.
he ended up being moved to a bed early, I guess, because he wouldn't stand for the crib after a while. But um, at any rate, these two it appeared to me to be two luminous entities. I don't really know how to describe them. Amorphous blobs of light, and I'm not
Okay.
even sure if it was one entity or two, like one entity that looked like two entities. I don't know, but
Mhm.
she basically asked me a bunch of basic questions like what is your name, like where are you, who are you, why are you, like it was the same question basically over and over again, but phrased differently, and I
Oh,
just
wow.
kept patiently answering them. I gave
Mhm.
them like my full first, middle, and last name, which if those were fairies, that was probably a bad idea. Um,
Maybe that's why you go by AP now.
yeah, right. Got a new name. And actually, I have a history of adopting fake names for things that I'm doing. So maybe that I never really considered that before. But
Interesting. Now I
um,
kind of want to
eh,
do your birth chart, but anyways.
oh yeah, I'd be open to that. Yeah, it was kind of a weird thing where they were doing, and I wasn't afraid at all. It felt like a playful thing to me,
Mhm.
and then before I got a chance to ask them anything, they just went out toward the window. And the thing that made them leave was when they kept pressing me about where we were. I said, "This is my room. Like you're in my room," you know.
Uh-huh.
And that seemed to make them think like, "Oh well, well, we're not wanted here, I guess." So like they didn't say anything. They just moved away. and I was
Yeah.
really sad. Like I had this intense like sadness and feeling of unfairness. I'm like, wait, come back. Like I thought we were
Yeah.
playing. Don't I get to ask a question? And then as I reached out after them, my point of view turned around so that I could see myself from outside of my body with my arms out, and I saw my own body fall back onto the pillow, and I got sucked backwards out the window, and then basically had a glimpse of future events um, that are ridiculously mundane. I just basically saw a birthday party happening at a McDonald's in the center of the town I grew up in, and there was no McDonald's in the center of my town
Mhm.
until like I think 4 years later, they built
Mhm.
one, and my mom had a birthday party for me there with the ball pit and everything and all my friends. So
Oh my god.
yeah,
That's
so I
amazing.
mean that was kind of my initiation with it was my inciting event when I was really little that kind of made me think there's a little bit more going on to reality than people say.
That would do it. Yeah. Do you remember what color the light was?
It was white.
It's just white?
Just
Mm.
white, yeah. I mean, to me, it was like a plasma ball, sort of, but not really with the purplish blue hues in it. Just white, you know.
Yeah. 'Cause I mean, I know, I think you've heard my story about like the Fey Fey Angel, whatever they were ones where one was red and one was green. So that's
Yeah,
why I asked. But like, do you think that maybe you were out of your body during that whole conversation, or do you think you were just sucked out at that moment when you were trying to go after them?
my perception is that I was sucked out at that moment, you know.
Okay.
But
Okay.
my
Interesting.
perception immediately following, I'm sure I was told. I don't really remember too much around it. I don't remember telling my folks or anything like that. But I imagine if I did tell any adults, they told me it was all a dream. And
Right. Of course.
I, I think for a time, in in my childhood, I had considered it that way, until they built the McDonald's. That's the thing that made made me change my mind.
Yeah, that would do it. I mean, it's like how else could you have known that McDonald's was coming there and that there would be a birthday party there? You know,
Right.
it's
Yeah, I
that's
mean, it was a very precise like, the image that I had wasn't verbatim what happened,
mm,
like, some of it was just symbolic, like, I had
yeah.
a picture of balloons, I had a picture of a birthday cake,
Mm,
and, like, the McDonald's and exactly where it was in town, in the plaza that they built it in, you know?
yeah.
Um, but, I mean, it's not like I saw direct images from that day when we had the party, so
And and that's completely normal because like as someone who's had a lot of spirit communication, it's like sometimes you just get varying degrees of how symbolic it is versus how precise it is. And I mean, it can really run the whole spectrum from something that's like you have to struggle to figure out what they're saying versus something that's just like very much, yeah, here it is exactly, so it's,
yeah. And
yeah.
it's like dream interpretation, right? I mean,
But yeah.
a lot of people have prophetic dreams, and
Mhm.
dream logic is similar to surrealism and how puns operate. Puns are a helpful way to think of it, and double entendre. So sometimes a symbol in your dream makes no sense, and then something happens in your real life, and you realize what that symbol was supposed to represent, right?
Yeah, and sometimes it can also mean two things at once as well. Like, and both are things that are important for you to know, from that message. But it's like one thing can represent multiple different things in the dream because of that one symbol. And it's like a whole job just trying to interpret dreams and spirit messages. It's like a whole field of study.
It is, and I think there's a very real danger if you're not properly equipped or if you're in a very emotionally charged time of getting too hung up on it.
Hmm.
I don't know if you've
Yes.
experienced this personally or have seen people go through it. I imagine you've at least seen people go through it. It can be
I've
really tough to watch. Yeah.
I've seen people go through this with not just like dream messages or spirit communication, but like with tarot readings and other things like that too, where people get so hung up on it, and or astrology,
Mhm.
it's just like people get so hung up on it that they lose common sense, and they're just like they're not just living their life. It's just like some people need to just like step back. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there's something to be said for kind of avoiding the magical if you're in a really dark place. Like sometimes it's best to really take a break from it because you can become obsessed and then you're not helping yourself and you can't help anybody around you if you don't help yourself, you know?
Yeah, 100%. But it's like a lot of times you'll find I've had to cut people off from getting tarot readings before because like they'll just keep asking the same questions over and over again, and they'll become like so dependent on the answers. I'm just always like, look, the cards will always tell the truth, but it's the interpretation that can be wrong. That's where human error can come in. So it's like, yes, I'm trying to do my best to give you the proper interpretation of the cards. And like, this is great as like a framework, a guide, but like, you can't completely depend on this. You have to also use your own brain and like observe what's going on around you and like, consider that as well. Like you can't just be like, "Oh my God, well the card said this, so I'm going to base my entire life around this." And it gets to the point where people become so dependent on that it gets them into like this dangerous almost cult like mentality. It's just extremely unhealthy, um and it's bad enough when they're asking you for that information, but then when they start reading it for themselves, then they're just in a feedback loop, and that can go really wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it is tough to watch and that is a good thing to do as a reader is to kind of put some boundaries down and say, "No, look, I've given you 3 tarot readings. They all said the same thing.
Yeah.
You're just gonna have to accept it." And I think people accept their fate sometimes too, and they don't realize that they have an active role, like you said.
Yeah.
That's whether the news is good or bad, they still have an active role to play. You can't like sit around waiting for it to happen, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, or like get all doom and gloom about it and just be like, well, I can't make a decision unless I have the cards to tell me what to do. And it's just like, please use your own agency. I think you need to live your life again instead of letting the cards or astrology or whatever live your life for you. It's like
yeah,
these are just tools. Like they're not supposed to be like pulling your puppet strings.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, they're there to help you be prepared for some of the
Yeah.
things that are going to happen, and
Sure.
they're not making things happen and you're not just blindly accepting what's coming. You just have to be prepared and for the eventuality.
Exactly.
So yeah,
Hmm.
I always thought of it more as like a therapeutic thing, or at least when I started. I'm like I kind of rationalized it in my own head, like this is something that helps me unpack the root causes of problems and people can help figure it out. But I'm not a therapist. I don't have any training in that kind of stuff, but I always felt like it was helpful in that way. And I wasn't wrong, but there is like a magical side to it too that's
Yes.
undeniable if you've been doing it long enough. So
Yeah, and I've tended to use it more for like actual like predictive readings, personally. But I did notice that, when I was doing reading a lot, which was back when I was like in high school, college era, reading a lot for people, it does become sort of like a counseling session. And, I was always like the friend that people came to with their problems anyway. So it's like as I'm doing the cards for them, it's like I'm also basically counseling them, giving them life advice. It just ends up like not quite like therapy in the way you're saying where you're unpacking emotions and everything necessarily, but me being basically the mom friend through the cards.
right. Well, people need that. That's an
Yeah,
important role.
especially at that age.
Yeah.
Someone's got to be the rational person, like out of the friends group of when you're teenagers.
Yeah. Right. especially if your friends respect you enough to actually listen to you too. You know, that's the,
You can hope.
yeah, yeah. Um, Otherwise, they end up getting in trouble. But all right, so we're going in a lot of avenues here. There's a lot of things that I feel like we're speeding right past because we're just talking.
Mhm.
I mean, it's good, but you mentioned, one of your fairy encounters, and that's great because I mean, I've had zero fairy encounters, and this is something I'm very interested in having you talk about a little bit. I think you've told some of this on Octavian Graves's Strange Dominions podcast, right?
Yes, and I actually wrote it out. It's in Morgan Daimler's new book, Celtic Fairies in North America. So they are honestly someone that I have the utmost respect for. I think that they are just a phenomenal academic researcher, and I'm honestly honored that one of my encounters, well, actually two of my encounters were included in that book. So uh,
Yeah,
so
that's
I don't
phenomenal.
like spoil too much of what happened, but I will say a few things about that. It was very weird. It happened. Oh God, like I was. It happened in like the early 2000s. I was at a sleepover at my friend's house, and the salient points like on why I kind of like lean towards this counting as a fairy encounter is just because in hindsight you realize all these things about it. And I also have to give a shout out to Joshua Cutchin's books because a lot of those I guess red flags about fairies like I learned from reading his work as well and like listening to him on podcasts. But like it was this neighborhood that was a little bit newer than my grandparents' neighborhood. It was built in the 80s, so when my mom had been growing up it was forest, and it's where my mom used to go berry picking. And so berry picking is one of those things that you find in a lot of fairy encounters. So like this was like right where the berries would have been, and then another thing too is like you often see like red and green lights. I think orange is another popular color, but like there was something with the red and green, and it was ironic that the way they took form when I visually saw them, not asleep. One was a red ball of light, and it's like kind of like you said, it's like a plasma. Like you're not quite sure what it was, but it wasn't
Mhm.
throwing off light. It was illuminated, but it wasn't casting light on the room. And the other one, rather than being a ball, looked like what I'd say would be like a 3 or 4 foot figure that was like squatting down next to me, and it was green. And I mean loosely in the shape of like a figure squatting down. Like you could just barely see a shape. Like it wasn't like a detailed like, body or anything.
I was gonna say this was also luminous. Was it
Yes,
like
yeah. Like
glowing?
glowing, luminous, but not casting light. So there was no like green reflection on the floor anywhere.
Okay.
It was just light. And there was nothing where the head would be. So it was
Mm.
like it was headless. Or I couldn't, or what I see is I couldn't see its head. My eyes are just human, they are fallible. I'm lucky I was able to see this much of the other, but maybe if I had a better, stronger third eye, maybe I would have seen more, but
Hmm.
that's what I could see. It's like basically like I saw the head of the one and the body of the other earlier in that night before we had like got our PJs on and everything. There was this point where it seemed like something had taken her over when she was speaking to me. And it was like in this really like, weird voice. She was just like, um, Lindsay, I think an angel is going to visit you tonight, and I don't know why I got the sense that there'd be two. Maybe she did say angels. I'd have to honestly look back at my own diary at this point, because it's like over 20 years ago.
Right.
But yeah, I just it was the creepiest thing ever. I just remember asking her, I'm like, what do you mean? Like in my dream, while I'm awake? Like I just remember being immediately like on edge, like nervous about this. Like I don't want to see anything. Like what are you talking about? And
Wait, so did she see it too, or were you by yourself when you saw that?
yeah, she was asleep when it came.
Oh,
Yeah, she had already fallen asleep, and I was not asleep yet. I was just um I was laying down, but I hadn't fallen asleep yet. And I remember at first, like I was just kind of like looking around the room, and when I saw I think it's like I had a bottle of Mountain Dew Code Red, near my head and stuff. And at first I thought that like the red ball was just like somehow like a reflection of like the moonlight off my, pop bottle, or like,
huh.
like I was trying, my brain was trying to rationalize it, and I was like, wait a minute, it's a contained ball of light. It's not a beam of light, like,
Right.
and
Did you get the sense it was like free floating? This wasn't like light on the wall, right? This was just kind of
oh,
in the middle
no, it
of
was a
the room.
sphere.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was a
right.
sphere. It was a sphere. It was in the corner of the room. It was a sphere. Yeah.
That's one
Yeah.
thing I've always had trouble describing with mine. I thought it was obvious, but not really. I guess is that
Oh,
these things were like free floating, and
yeah.
like not. It's not like when you reflect something off of something else and it's on the wall and it's a light moving around on the wall. Like this
Yeah.
was had some kind of denseness to it, and it was a
I
soft light, like what you're describing. It wasn't
yeah.
lighting up the room.
I mean,
Um,
maybe it's because I had my own experience, but I assumed yours were three-dimensional, right off the bat.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, I've gotten more careful about how I describe it now,
Oh,
but I feel
yeah.
like it wasn't always that way. And I'm sure you've
Gotcha.
had the same difficulty, right? And
Yeah.
yeah. So, but well, yeah, your description makes total sense to me. It's more for the listeners, I think, because
Yeah.
um, people that haven't seen this in person might not really grasp it. But it's wild. It's like your head, your mind can't make sense of it, right? So,
Right. Well, it's like, well,
yeah.
the green one that was like essentially squatting next to me. I mean, that was in the middle of the room, so
Mm,
like, no, there's like a bunch of space behind it before you get to like, the wall and everything,
right. Right.
it's like what, a couple feet away from the wall, squatted right next to my body, like very, very disturbing. Yeah.
It didn't talk to you.
No, no.
Hmm.
I told you I wasn't gonna tell this story.
Oh, all right, all right. Sorry.
No. But no,
um,
it didn't talk to me, but I felt touches on my body, even though I did not see it move. I'll give
okay.
you that. So
All right.
yeah, it was a sensation of um one one touch felt warm, and then the other touch felt cold and almost wet.
Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, not to dig into this story too much because I know that it's in the book, and we want people to find Morgan Daimler's book when it comes out. But
Yeah.
um, I was just curious. Did your friend remember speaking in the weird voice later? Did you ask? Because you described it specifically as sounding like somebody else's voice coming through her. I was curious if.
I mean, it was her voice, but it wasn't her, if that
Right.
makes more sense. So it's like it was weird, and she got like real serious in a weird way when she said it, and like it just felt like, like someone else was in there saying it for her, and like she knew what she said. So she did know what she said at that point, but it was almost like it was her, but like even she felt like a little bit weird about it, I think. It's so hard to remember, like, and I don't want to put words in her mouth, but I think she kind of felt like maybe she was channeling a message or something, is what I'm guessing. It was, but like I don't think she felt like controlled. I don't
Yeah.
think
Right.
she felt like it wasn't like she blacked out or anything, it wasn't
Mm,
anything like that.
okay.
That's the
All right.
best I can remember, and I am, like, so sorry if I got it wrong, because I just
Yeah.
I
Well,
yeah,
that's it. Yeah. I mean, I didn't want to make you tell any stories you didn't want to tell tonight. So,
Oh, it's fine, it's fine. It's just like also, like, I hate putting words in people's mouths, like, I'm just
oh,
like, I don't know how she felt exactly anymore because like, I don't
right.
remember, like, but
Yeah, especially when you lose touch with people, or in
yeah.
my case, all my stories from my youth kind of naturally involve my family, and I'm always hesitant to tell stories that kind of rely on their point of view as well because I don't want to
Mhm.
talk about them without their consent on that. Like I don't want
Oh, yeah.
to.
I mean, that's understandable,
Right. Yeah,
like,
I have reference to like on a recent episode, like my brother doesn't want to talk about his experiences because he's afraid it'll make it come back. So like I
uh,
respect that, and I don't
yeah,
talk about the specifics, but I will say that he was there for stuff. So
right.
yeah.
Yeah, I know that, and that's completely fair, and, like, I probably should have, like, blanked out her name for this too, I normally don't say her
Uh,
name, like, we lost
I'm
touch,
sh- I'm sure
but
it'll be okay.
yeah,
I
I
didn't mean
didn't
to
say her
take.
last name, so.
Yeah. Did you have a? You said you had like a lighthearted one that you wanted to share, right? The
Yeah,
bathroom ghost.
I can share the bathroom ghost. It's actually a Christmas time one.
Oh,
Uh,
excellent.
yeah, I'm sad we didn't get to the poltergeisty stuff. I had a glass levitate on us, but,
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, I'll throw mine at you. The bathroom ghost because it's real short. Like we were saying with poltergeist stuff, a lot of it is really doesn't
yeah,
doesn't take that long to tell, so it's not an impressive
yeah.
story. But there was one in the bathroom in the house I grew up in.
Mhm.
My brother screamed after he got out of the shower, and I went in to see what he was doing, and there
Yeah.
were a pair of like little kid handprints in the steam on the window at the top of the
Oh,
window, up near the ceiling. You know,
oh my god.
and I could never figure that one out. Like it scared the hell out of him.
Yeah.
He was little, and I mean, I had to think like if he held on to the door, he maybe could have like walked up the wall and then like just put his feet on. I'm like,
Um,
or even if you use the palm of your hand and then your fingertips to make like a fake
I
footprint,
think yeah.
he wouldn't have been able to reach that high. Like there was nothing
No.
for him to stand on over there and he seemed legitimately scared. It was
Yeah,
like,
it'd be very slippery too.
yeah, and the door was closed the whole time he was in there. I mean, that was one that blew my mind, and that was just one of like many weird little poltergeist hauntings. But it's just like tiny footprints on a window in the steam after the shower up near the ceiling.
Uh, yeah, that's definitely a bit strange.
Yeah,
Poor brother.
yeah. He was
Oh.
traumatized.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think he actually fell down the stairs after that one. I think he. Oh no, that was a different time. There was an alarm clock radio plugged into the same outlet that the lights were. So when you flipped on
Yeah.
the lights, the radio automatically came on, but it was
Okay.
always really quiet. It
Mhm.
was just like a really quiet, like pop station, and
Yeah.
somehow the volume got jacked all the way up. My brother turned on the light, and it just blasted at him, and he went running away and slipped and fell down the stairs.
Oh god. Oh, no. Hopefully he was okay. That
Yeah,
was
I mean, he was good at hurting himself other ways. He didn't need an excuse usually, so he was okay that time. But
oh,
yeah, I'd love to hear about your bathroom ghost,
okay, well, yeah, we'll start with the bathroom ghost.
and I can always have you back for a full poltergeist chat. We can just do a
Oh,
whole episode just on poltergeists. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
The house that I lived in college was, it's definitely a good story, that carried on, actually past college, but yeah, for the bathroom ghost, it was my grandma's house, and, like, um for Christmas, me and my cousin would basically like sleep over for the whole 2 weeks. Like they lived like 5 minutes down the road from my mom's house. So it just became like slumber party for me and the cousin. And we'd have the whole family there at night, because my aunt and my cousin and my uncle, they were all coming in from Texas. So, we would just, eat cookies, watch TV, like with the whole family for 2 weeks. And there's just this one night, and this is the beginning of the bathroom ghost saga. But this one night, I'm going to the bathroom. It's like late at night. Mom's got her cookies, her tea. Everyone is in the living room. Okay, all watching TV with their cookies. I'm the only one on the other side of the house where the bathroom is. And as I'm using the bathroom, they have like that lever style handle on the doors, not a round doorknob. So
Yep.
I was able to watch it slowly turn down and open. And now, my first thought was not a ghost because, see, my cousin and I would play tricks on her dad all the time. We were jerks, okay? And one of our
Mhm.
favorite things to do is that this is so awful. When he was trying to shower, I found that using the stick part of my belt buckle, I could unlock the door. And so we would unlock it, push it open, and run. Like that was our hilarious joke, because we're really young at this point, so it's funny.
Yeah.
Um, so I thought I was getting pranked back. I was 100%. I was like, oh, I'm so angry. They got me. Oh, so like, I'm storming out of the bathroom all the way, back to the living room. I'm like, which one of you did it? Amber? Uncle Dennis? I'm like, who opened the door on me? And they're all just like, Lindsay, what are you talking about? I'm like, someone opened the bathroom door on me. Someone pulled the prank, and they're like,
Yeah.
no, we've all been in here the whole time. And I always have to explain my mom is the most boring Capricorn on earth. She will not lie. She will not indulge in pranks. So, if mom says no one left, no one left.
Right.
So that's when I was like, what the heck, right? And so everyone's like, well, it just probably wasn't latched all the way. It probably just, maybe the vent blew it open. I'm like, Mom, the vent is inside. The door opens inward. The vent would have blown it closed, not open it. Like make it
Well,
make
plus it
sense.
can't move the handle. Right.
Yeah, it can't
Yeah.
slowly turn the handle, and like that's the part I kept sticking on too. Exactly. And my mom's just like, no, it was just the wind. I'm like, oh my God, that's how she is. So I maintain this was the bathroom ghost, and that's how the legend started. And so you know, years later, it's like when it was like an actual Christmas day, not just, during the time off, vacation time, but our other cousins who came up from Columbus, were there because it was actual Christmas dinner. And I think the first one was, yeah, it was Cal. I think it was okay, it was my younger cousin was the first one to have this experience. She, went into the bathroom and she had the bathroom ghost experience where the door opened on her. And so, of course, we had to explain the whole legend and initiate her on, like, this is what the bathroom ghost does. It opens the door on you when you're trying to use the bathroom at Christmas time, you know? And then you fast forward a couple more years and I had a new step cousin. So she had never heard the legend of the bathroom ghost. And we're all, in the one room. It's like the fancier living room, not like the family room den kind of one, but like the one with like the fancier couches. It's closer to the bathroom. So we're all in that one, hiding away from the quote unquote adults and talking about stuff. And my cousin, the step cousin, passes by. She goes, sees the bathroom. She comes out, comes into the room with us, and she's like, I think something's wrong with your door. Like your door opened on me in the bathroom. And then, of course, we're all like, oh, ghost. It got you
Yeah.
too. So yeah, that's been the legend of the bathroom ghost. It happens like every couple of years to a new cousin, basically.
Dude, that's wild. I wonder if it's just the residual kind of like prankster energy from you and your cousin when you're just like little, Like it's kind of like how people think there's a psychic imprint of a traumatic event, but in this case, it's just the pure glee that comes with a nonsensical childhood prank.
It's definitely a strong possibility, or something just, maybe it was inspired by us. But either way,
Yeah,
I mean, it's fantastic. I love it. So
yep. Christmas bathroom ghost. This is
Yes.
great because I didn't really have a Christmas episode in mind, but this is going to be perfect for it because this is coming out right around Christmas. So like that Christmas bathroom ghost is a wonderful story, and I'm glad we got it in.
I'm
Um,
so glad.
but yeah, I will definitely have to have you back at some point where we can just trade poltergeist stories because that'll be fun. Like poltergeist activity is
Oh yeah.
something that's one of my favorite subjects and the thing I've had the most paranormal experience with out of all things. So
Really? I
yeah,
have to
yeah.
I have to say, I mean, I won't have just poltergeist because I really don't have that much, but I do have things that are tangential, including I could even get into telekinesis if you'd like. So,
Well, that's where I would go with it because I
yeah.
generally have thought of it as being recurrent, like a recurring spontaneous psychokinesis on my part.
Mhm.
So I think
Okay.
there is a connection anyway. Like it's not
Mhm.
necessarily one or the other. It could be.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I think we're on
Okay,
the
yeah.
same wavelength.
Oh,
So
oh, yeah.
that'll be a
I
that'll be a good future show coming
Oh,
in
I'm excited.
2025. Yeah.
So excited.
But for now, um, where can people? You have a whole business with candles and spellcraft and stuff, right? Um,
I I I do. I just started this year, but I have Roadside Apothecary LLC, and so I have your mundane stuff, like scented candles and some gemstone jewelry and things like that. But where I have uh, something unique to offer is that I dabble in spell candles and sort of magica materia. So jewelry that I craft during certain astrological events.
Perfect.
And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, with the spell candles, just to give you a quick idea of them, what I'm doing is I'm using correspondence tables to kind of get everything you need packed into the candle, doing it on the correct day of the week, planetary hour, moon phase, all that jazz to just kind of do all the hard grunt work for you. So when you need it, it's already ready to go for you.
Wow, amazing. Yeah, because that is time
Mm.
consuming and hard stuff for a lot of people. So, but if you're well practiced in it, it's go to the pros when you want that stuff done. That's
Yeah.
what I say.
And they smell good too. So
Yeah,
bonus.
yeah. So that's Roadside Apothecary. I can put the link for that in the show notes as well.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Thank you.
but along with the Waterford Film Festival,
Yes.
because we've covered a lot of ground tonight for an hour long program. But if people want to find you on the internet, first of all, is that something you want people to do? You want people to find you, but and if
Um,
so, where can they find you?
I suppose the only public page I have other than my business is you can find me on Blue Sky. So if you want
Yeah.
to link that, I'm gonna have that as my public face, I guess, if people really want to, get a hold of me for something. Um,
Okay. Nice. Yeah.
I
Blue
warn
sky's
you, I
where
don't
it's at.
follow back. Like
Okay.
so I'll follow back if like I find your cat's cute enough, but that's about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Show the cats. Cats are the price of entry. So.
That's right.
All right, Lindsay. Well, this has been a blast, as I suspected it would be. Um,
It has.
thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on, and I will definitely have you back on.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure, man. It's great.
Okay. All right. Talk soon.
But bye.